of participants who will be watching us today. And I guess that speaks volumes about the importance and relevance of today's topic, that a lot of people are really interested to learn about it as much as they can. So we're very happy with your presence, and in addition with the positive response that we've received so far ever since we announced that we will be holding this webinar. Again, thank you so much for your interest and attendance today. My name is Safa Manalao, and I will be your host and moderator for today's session. The current pandemic, as we all know, has brought on a lot of changes in the lives of many people, both in the Philippines and around the world. Not only have schools closed, but also many businesses had to either temporarily or permanently shut down and lay off employees. But for those with entrepreneurial mindsets, they turn to business for a stream of income, or possibly just to make good use of their downtime. And with that came the peak of the online selling amidst the pandemic. So we are all probably well acquainted by now with the surge of online sellers on social media platforms, most popularly Facebook, of course. And we may have supported these online sellers either by buying their products or probably sharing their posts with the hope that they would get noticed and eventually their sales would pick up. Now, recently, however, buzz was created when the BIR released its Revenue Memorandum Circular 6020 that notified online sellers to immediately register their online businesses and abide by the tax code. And this meant that they would have to now pay taxes, among other requirements as well. This news was not entirely well received by the community of online sellers, as many questions and much confusion rose. For this purpose, the Graduate Studies Department of CBAA MSU-IIT has decided to hold today's webinar in order to help our community of online sellers probably understand BIR circular a little more, and perhaps also clarify to you any points that remain vague. So ultimately, the goal of this webinar is to guide the online sellers and all of our participants on the implications of the BIR circular so that you guys can better prepare for and manage your businesses. Now, before I introduce you to our speaker, let me inform you of a few house rules that we will be observing throughout this webinar. And this is to maintain order and also equal opportunity for everyone to interact with our speaker. First, kindly keep your microphones on mute throughout the webinar. Second, you can post your questions on Slido while the speaker's presentation is ongoing, and they will be answered afterwards. Third, please note that questions will be entertained only through Slido to ensure that all questions are logged. In case we run out of time and some questions are left unanswered, we will answer them and make the replies available to you through email. In Slido, you can vote up questions others have raised that you would like to ask as well. Now, for those who are not able to take note of the Slido link in the attendance log, don't worry, because I believe Dr. Pamela Resurrection has already provided to you the link in the chat box. So if you have questions later on, you may just head on over there to that chat box and click on the link. Okay, fourth, as mentioned also in the attendance log, we are recording today's webinar for later viewing, and we'll be posting it on MSU-IIT CBAA Graduate Studies Facebook page. So if you do not wish to be seen, kindly keep your microphones and cameras off. Finally, we will be asking you to answer a short evaluation after the webinar. We encourage you to answer it so that we can improve our future webinars. All right, moving on to introducing our speaker. Our speaker today has extensive work experience in the field of taxation. He is an alumnus of the accountancy program of CBAA MSU-IIT, where he graduated with a cum laude in April 2010. In the same year, he took the accountancy board exam and passed it, and then moved on to work as an associate in the tax services division at SGV and Company. There, he gained an in-depth knowledge on the tax jurisdiction of the Philippines, and this was even sharpened when he transferred to Merck Sharp and Dome, Philippines in 2012 to work as a tax officer. In Merck, Sharp, and Dome, he received the Director's Award or the highest award from the company for leading a team that resolved tax litigation cases and consequently bringing in more than 40 million British pounds worth of tax savings. He has handled numerous projects, including tax planning and strategy, internal tax controls optimization, and he also possesses a good grasp of the International Financial Reporting Standards and the International Accounting Standards. He has solid experience in various industries such as aerospace and defense, healthcare, and telecommunication, to name just a few. In total, he has more than 9 years of experience in the tax practice, specializing in business tax advisory, tax compliance, and tax reporting, as well as accounting services. So right now, he is the manager at the Tax Services Division of Ernst & Young, Saudi Arabia. Ladies and gentlemen, our knowledgeable speaker for today's webinar is Mr. Daryll Don C. Okay, I hope, Daryll, can you hear me? You may take it away now.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me present to you, show you my screen first. So can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see it, Daryll.
Right. So again, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar. We'll be talking about the tax implications of online selling, and particularly on this RMC 60/2020. I've read so many posts, I've read so many comments, and I've summarized all those concerns, and I've noted 5 common concerns and questions among online sellers. And first on the list is, am I required to register with BIR? How do I register with BIR? What are the costs involved upon registration? How much taxes should I pay? What are the consequences for non-registration if get caught? So we will try to answer these questions as we proceed with our slides later on. So what do we expect on this 30 minutes or 1 hour discussion about the RMC number 60/2020? So let me provide you a brief overview on what to expect along as we go along with our discussion. We will be discussing first the salient features of RMC 60/2020, the common types of online business, the process of business registration, the decision tax status chart, Dti registration requirements, LGU business permit requirements or the mayor's permit, BIR registration requirements, tax compliance requirements, penalties, and the action points. Let's first discuss what are the features or the important features when the BIR issued its revenue memorandum circular or the RMC number 60/2020. So this is a notice to all persons doing business and earning income in any manner or form. So if you can see, I've underlined it so that to give emphasis that this notice is to all persons doing business. So it's not only covering the online sellers. So if you're doing business, even if you're not doing it online, then you are covered on this RMC. However, if we proceed with the sentence, the BIR emphasizes or specifically mention the digital transactions. Then here we go that the BIR is trying to remind our online sellers to register, right? Second, the good thing about this RMC is the BIR provides a tax relief wherein there will be no penalty for late registration if you will register your business not later than July 31, 2020. So this not only covers online sellers. So if you have friends who do not do online business like the normal one, the traditional business, then they are also covered by this RMC. The third point is there will be no penalty to be imposed for declaring past transactions and settle the tax due thereon. So there will be two benefits here for the RMC 6020. First, there will be no penalty for late registration if you will register before 31 of July 2020. And second, if you will declare your past transactions and there will be tax due thereon, so meaning to say if you have if you declare gross sales or you are required to pay percentage tax at 3%, you are not be imposed or you will not be penalized for additional penalty like the interest for late filing or late payment, the surcharge. So if you report all of this before July 31, then you will have to you have already availed the benefit of the non-imposition of penalty. So these are the three things that the RMC advising all the taxpayers, specifically the online sellers. Let's move on to the common types of online business. Right. So if you can see in the footnote below, this is coming a definition from RMC 55/2013. So this is before the Duterte administration, wherein Kim Hinares, if you can remember her, she was the former BIR commissioner. Her time, she reminded or she reiterated the registration of the online sellers, meaning to say RMC 60/2020 is not something new. It is just a reminder, calling the attention of all online sellers. However, in RMC 60/2020, it did not define who are those online sellers, who are those coverage persons. Now, going back to RMC 55/2013, so it was issued in 2013, the BIR strived to define who are those coverage persons for whom it will be subject or to register with BIR. So they define 4 types of online business currently in the Philippines. First on the list is the online shopping or online retailing. So it's a form of electronic commerce. So I think most of you or most of the participants here will be covered under this category. Second one, the online intermediary service. So this is the Shopee, the Lazada. So all of this kind of business will be covered under this category. Online advertisement, classified ads. Like for example, if you are a YouTuber or a blogger and then you promote products and you earn a commission from there, so you're just selling a product through an online platform, then you are covered under this category. Online auction. The seller sells the product to who bids the highest price. I've not seen so far doing this kind of online auction in the online platform and social media. I've not seen, but if in case there are, they are still covered and they're required to register. Now let's proceed to the process of business registration. So we have answered the question, am I required to be registered with BIR? And the answer is yes. So let's proceed now to the process of the business registration. Before we move on to the process of business registration, I would like to present to you, to advise you that there are there are 3 common types of business in the Philippines: the sole proprietorship, the partnership, and the corporation. So sole proprietorship, we are all aware of this one, and this is very common among businesses in the Philippines. So it's just simply refers to a person who owns the business and personally responsible for its debts. And I think most of you will be categorized under this sole proprietorship type of business. Partnership, 2 or more individuals own the business. It is a juridical person, which means its legal personality is separate from that of its business owners, meaning to say it has its own legal entity. Unlike a sole proprietorship, it doesn't have a juridical person. Rather, the owner of the business, it's the one who will proceed with the business. The third one is the corporation. It's artificial being created by operation of law. So why I'm discussing this, because the webinar would be focused more on the sole proprietorship. So don't expect that I'll be discussing on the partnership and corporation along the way. Why? Because the tax implications for partnership and corporation are treated differently with sole proprietorship along with its registration. Okay, so I hope it's clear. So let's proceed with the process. So there are only 3 steps. And note, this is only for business who doesn't have an employees. So I've noted and I've observed that many of the online sellers are retailers. So I don't think that many of you require employees. So these are the 3 steps. If you don't have, if your business doesn't require employees, then you only need to have 3 steps. First on the list is the Dti registration. Okay. We will be discussing this in detail in the succeeding slides. And the step 2, PIR registration and barangay clearance. You can do this simultaneously. Why? Unlike before, mayor's permit is a prerequisite, or it is a documentary requirement before you can register with BIR. But now, BIR clarified that there is no need for you to have a mayor's permit. So you can easily register and get a team with BIR without a mayor's permit. Okay. The question is why? The question is, do we still need a mayor's permit? So the answer would be yes, because without a mayor's permit, you will be considered doing illegally. So your business will be considered illegal. So if you go to mayor's permit, you would still need a barangay clearance, right? So there are only 3 steps for a sole proprietorship type of business. And in the business that have employees, because if you have employees, these 3 steps would be extended, because you need to register with Pag-ibig, you need to register with SSS, and you need to register with Dole. So it would have extensive, processes. So the focus of this webinar is for those business who doesn't have does not require an employees, and I think most of you falls under this category. Now, let's proceed to the decision tax status chart. The decision tax status chart is very important, because you would be able to determine what type of taxes are you going to register to BIR. So you need to know where do you stand right now. You need to know what are your gross sales. You need to know how much gross sales do you expect at the end of the year. So let's define some tax concept which would be helpful to understand the flow chart in the succeeding slides. First is income tax. So many of you it's not clear why the BIR imposed another tax. Like you already paid income tax, and why is it there's another VAT? There's also percentage tax. Would that be considered double taxation? In this webinar, we will be trying to clarify those misconceptions. So let's distinguish between income tax and business tax. Income tax is a tax upon receipt of income. So meaning to say, income is the revenue or the amount of the amount you receive from your customer minus the cost of selling the products and other operating expenses. So BIR would collect some share out of your income. Now, before the train, okay, there's only one option that the income tax will be calculated, and this is under the graduated income tax rates. Okay? But now, because of the train, you have an option to select if you will be subject, if you are qualified, and you can select an straightforward 8% flat tax rate. And the 8% flat tax rate is calculated based on the gross sales or receipts, or this is the amount that you receive from your customer, plus other income. So the 8% flat tax rate does not have a benefit of deducting of the cost that you sold, or the expenses that you incurred. So this is for income tax. Now let's move on to the business tax. So business tax is a form of consumption tax. So in the Philippines, in the Philippine jurisdiction, we follow this principle called destination principle. So if you purchase a product outside the country and you consume it, like for example, you purchase a phone, you will be subjecting, or you will be paying additional tax on it. So that's we call VAT, or percentage tax. It is called business tax because the consumption tax, okay, is indirectly imposed upon sellers, which are businesses. So the seller, or you will be the one who is required to pay the business tax. Okay. However, it is actually the one who is actually shouldering it is the consumer, right? So from the point of view of BAR, it is not the customer, it is not your customer who is responsible to remit the tax, the business tax, or the VAT, or the percentage tax. It is the seller. Okay. So we have two types of business tax in the Philippines. It's VAT at 12% and percentage tax usually at 3%. Why I put usually? Because there are other percentage taxes, and the tax rates it's less than 3% and are also more than 3%. So the common percentage, or the common tax rate that we use for online sellers, or for those doing business, is at the 3% percentage tax. Now, let us define the basis, or the tax base of calculating the tax. So, gross sales and receipts. I have seen so many comments, like in the Facebook, in social media, mentioning that the basis of the percentage tax is gross income. And that is incorrect, because gross income is calculated as revenue minus cost of sale, or the direct cost. Okay? Gross sales is different from gross income. Gross sales is the amount that you received from your customers. Like for example, you purchase face mask. You purchase face mask for 50 pesos, one box of face mask, and then you sell it for 100. Okay? And assuming you are under the percentage tax category, okay, you're required to pay percentage tax on it. You will not be calculating percentage tax on the gross income. So in the example, 100 minus 50, 50. So 50 times 3%, that would be wrong. So you will be calculating your percentage tax based on the 100, which is the amount that you expect to receive from your customer. Okay? I think, am I clear? Okay, let's proceed with the next slide. Yeah, so this is the one that I'm talking about, the graduated income tax rates. So take note of the date. It is only until December 31, 2022. Okay, the rates are different per level of taxable income. Like the 8%, it is straightforward based on gross sales. All right, gross sales plus other income. This is a chart. So I prepare a chart for purely business income earner. That means to say the only source of your income or revenue is from business. You are not employed. So you are not employed. You don't have an employer. Okay. So this is a decision chart wherein you would be able to identify or to determine what type of taxes you will be qualified or you're required to. Okay. So engage in online business, yes, and then it's required to register with BIR. Now, let's assess or let's evaluate if your business assets except land, okay, is less than 3 million, right? Total business assets. Take note, it's a business assets. So meaning to say the assets that you used for your business, except the land. It's less than 3 million and with employees. If your answer is yes, then you may be qualified under Barangay Micro Business Enterprise or the BMBE. The tax benefits under this category, once you have a certificate from DTI, okay, you will no longer pay income tax. Okay, even if your taxable income is more than 250,000. So you have heard in the news that 250,000 or less will not be subject to income tax. But if you are a barangay micro business enterprise, even if your income is more than 250,000 in a year, then you are not required to pay income tax. However, you will be required to pay business tax. So that would depend if your gross sales is less than or more than 3 million. So 12% VAT or 3% percentage tax. So for business tax, you only need to pay either. Okay, you will not be required to pay both. So if you're paying percentage tax, then you don't need to pay VAT. If you're paying VAT, then you don't need to pay percentage tax. Right? Okay, going back to this. So if your business assets is less than or more than 3 million and you don't have any employees, then you need to check. Okay? You need to check your expected annual sales for this year. All right. So if your expected annual sales or the gross sales or the amount that you receive from your customers, okay, if that would be more than 3 million pesos, then this is your tax. Okay, the first 250,000 net income or net taxable income is exempt, and then the excess of that is subject to the graduated rates. That's the table that I just showed earlier. And then this is income tax, and then you will be required to pay VAT, 12% VAT. Okay, and if you expect your sales would not be 3 million, so how much that would be? So if that is not 3 million, then you have an option. You have an option to select in your ITR 8%, or also in the upon registration. There, I will show you what are the contents or what are the information needed in the application for registration in BIR. I'll show you that later. And then you signify election of 8%. Meaning to say election is you put mark on X, X on the form that you are availing of the 8% tax rate. Then the first 250,000 gross sales, okay, gross sales will not be subject to income tax. It's only the excess of that amount will be subject to straightforward 8% flat tax rate. Plus, okay, you don't need to pay the 3% percentage tax. Okay. So if it's not more than 3 million, then you signify election for 8%. You only need to pay the excess of the 250,000 income tax. Then you don't need to pay 3% percentage tax. So that means to say you don't need to file business tax return. You only need to file your income tax return. Okay. But if you fail to signify your election or you put in your income tax return, then the first 250,000 net income, okay, it's net income. Here it's gross sales, but here if you don't select or you don't mark an X in your form, then you will be subject to the graduated rates. Okay, and again, you will be required to file your return and 3%, and then subject your gross sales at 3% percentage tax. So see the difference here. So if it's more than 3 million, you're subjecting it to VAT. If your gross sales is less than 3 million or 3 million or less, you will be only subject to 3% percentage tax. Okay. Next, mixed income earner. So mixed income earner is your employee, you're receiving compensation income, and then your employer deduct withholding tax on it, and then you just receive a net salary. And then you're also doing some business, online selling, then you will be reading this and such a chart. The only difference here is, compared to the previous one, is this one. Okay. In the previous one, you have a benefit of the 250,000 first line. Okay. But if you're a mixed income earner, meaning to say you have also compensation income, that 250,000 will be applied first in your compensation income. Then compensation income will be subject to the graduated rates. Okay? So it will not be subject to 8%. Compensation income, the income you earn or the salary that you receive from your employer, will be subject to graduated rates and not at all 8%. Okay? But your gross sales for your business, okay, will be subject to the 8%. And you don't have to pay percentage tax. Right? So, after evaluating your current position, you will be able to determine now what are the taxes that you need to register with the bearer, so that you would know what returns that you need to file for the year. Before that, let's first with the DTI business registration. So if you remember the 3 steps, so the step 1 is the DTI registration. The purpose of DTI business registration is just to register your business trade name. That means to say it should be unique. Okay, it should be unique. Doesn't have any other names registered in the Philippines. And business registration, DTI business registration is renewable every 5 years, right? And this is what I've told you. Obtaining a DTI registration does not mean that you have a license to run a business. The license to run a business is coming from a mayor's permit. Okay. Fortunately for us, in DTI, they have an online registration. So if you just click, it's an easy online user-friendly. You just need to put the trade name, your choice, of course. And then there are so many things there that you need to identify, like your name, of course, your address, and you need to select also which city or which category you belong to. There is different fee for the city. There's a different fee for municipality. Okay, and for the national, meaning to say across, if you're located in Iligan, you are selling in Manila, you're selling in Cebu, and you're selling in Davao, then you should register under national, which is 2,000. But if you're only selling within your region, for example, in Caraga, so you need to know who are those cities or provinces covered under Caraga, and you need to register or select the 1,000. But if your business is only covering within your city, for example, Iligan, then the cost of registration is only 500. And the barangay. And I believe, and not believe, I've observed that online selling, you you just don't limit yourself within your city, of course. If there are customers outside your boundary, and of course of course you will sell it. You will say, if you have a customer in Cebu, you will sell it. You will not stop yourself from selling it. So the best thing I think would be this one, just to be safer side. All right. And of course, DST meaning to say documentary stamp tax. So this is just a loose leaf stamp tax, documentary stamp tax that will be put on your certificate. It's just only 30 pesos. Right. So the LGU business requirements. So business requirements across LGU would be different, but these are the basic requirements so far that I've seen. For barangay clearance, there's a form, and you need the DTI certificate, 2 valid IDs. Example of those is the birth certificate. They would accept that, passports, and any other valid IDs. Proof of address. If you are leasing, if you don't own a house, you're just renting, then require your lessor to provide you a contract of lease. And if you own a house, then at least submit a copy of the certificate of land title, and then set a registration fee. And I think the average would be the 500 pesos. Mayor's permit, accomplished. By the way, DTI, it's very easy. You can complete this in less than 1 hour, and fee, DTI will accept payment online. So GCash, PayMaya. Right. So mayor's permit, again, there's a form. They would need barangay clearance. So that's why barangay clearance in step 2. You cannot go to mayor's permit without having this first obtained, and then cedula or community tax certificate. Once you are going to the barangay clearance, then you need you can request for a community tax certificate, because this can only be issued from barangay. DTI certificate, 2 valid IDs, proof of address, and settle permit fees. So if you're a first-time business owner, then the basis of the calculation of the LGU is usually on the capital investment. All right. But if you already have a business permit before, then they will calculate the local business tax based on your gross sales. So the same tax base for your percentage tax, the same tax base for your VAT. All right. BAR registration requirements. So these are 8. The first is accomplished by Air Form 1901, the registration. I'll be showing this later on. Accomplished by Air Form 1906, accomplished by Air Form 1905, and DTI certificate. Should have provided this copy. And if you are qualified, or you got the BMBE, or the Barangay Microbusiness Enterprise certificate, it's also from DTI. You can get it from DTI. Valid IDs, registration fee for BAR is only 500 pesos, and you need to register every year. Okay, the deadline for that is on or before 31 of January, and you need to pay GST, documentary stamp tax of 30 pesos, and purchase of BAR printed receipt. So this is something new, because unlike before, this is not available. BAR printed receipt or invoice this is available when you register with the BAR. So this is only available within the BAR office. Why this is needed? Because in authority to print, it may take some time. However, because take note, BAR printed receipt will only be is only valid within 15 days. Okay, so that means to say after the lapse of 15 days, issuing a receipt. That's why they only issue you a limited number of tabs. So let me show you, before we proceed, let me show you the BAR Form 1901. Am I talking too fast? Should I be slower?
No, I believe, Daryl, you're going at a good pace.
All right, thank you. Right, so this is 1901. Okay. So don't mind if you don't mind those information wherein it was indicated that this should be filled up by bear, right? For example, this one. So Phil's number. So what is Phil's number? So if you are reading the news, or if you are reading the newspapers, watching the news from the television, or even in the internet, Phil's number is basically our national ID number, right? So this is not yet available, so don't worry about that. You are not required to put your number because of course you do not know. Yep, so I've read last week the update on this one. The national ID number will start to roll on, and there will be more. They will be more focused. The National Statistics Office will be more focused first on those persons below wage earners, those in the poverty low social class below poverty line. So hopefully daw sabi is by 2022, all of us will have our own national ID number, right? So if you are registering in the office in Iligan, of course it's a branch. So you put branch because our head office where they are is in Quezon City. And then if you have an existing team, and I know many of you are already employees here, you already have your team, then you need to put your team here. Okay, single proprietorship, then mixed income earner. Okay, so in your case, you need to put this one, mixed income earner. If you're an employee at the same time you're an online seller, you need to mark X. But if you're only doing business, this one. And I don't think that we have a foreigner on the seminar, right? We don't have foreigners here.
No, I believe not.
Right. So again, so if you're purely business income earner, mark this X. And however, if you're an employee at the same time a business income earner, then you mark this X. Right? There's only one type. You can never be both. Sorry, this one single proprietor, and this one if you're a professional also, like CPA, and then you're doing business, and then you're also an employee. Okay, so these are the basic information, and you already know how to fill this out, right? Okay. Now, here, Part 5 tax type. So we need to be careful. That's why we started with the decision chart. Okay? We need to be careful on this one because BAR would always say, okay, you are required this, you are required this. But if you take note on the last part, here, declaration, right? You declare that all of the information that have been indicated here is yours, your responsibility, and you verified it. Ang nangyari, to be filled out by BIR, right? So ang nangyari niyan, lagay-lagay lang yan sa BIR, sometimes depending din sa kung anong interpretation niya. But if you know what should be the tax type that you should be paying, like for example, if you don't have an employee, then it should not be marked X here. Okay, you should be aware what tax type that you should be registering and you should be paying and filing. So in our case, if you don't have an employee, then this should not be marked. Okay, expanded. So expanded, this is a withholding tax. You're just being a withholding agent of BAR. Okay, so if you're renting, then you pay a rent to your lessor or your landlord, you need to withhold some percentage, withholding tax of 5%. So, and also if you are paid, your customer paid you in credit card, then you need to withhold a portion of that to the credit card company. Okay, that's a commission for the credit card. So the safest thing to do is mark this X. Okay, just tell BAR, okay, mark this X. It's fine. Fringe benefits is for those who have employees. Okay, this should not be here. If you don't have employees, then this should not be here. Okay. Now, where should we put the percentage tax? Should be here. Okay. If your gross sales is less than 3 million, actually you can do this. You know, you don't need an accountant. I'm sorry to you don't need an accountant. You can fill this out by yourself. It's user friendly, and because you see again here, it is you who declares that this application were made good in faith and verified by you. Okay. And income tax, this one you just fill this out, right? Okay. And then this is the authority to print. Now, before you can, how would I know who are those printers' name? There is a there is a list from BAR who are those accredited printers. Okay. For example, in Iligan, let's find Iligan. Right. So these are the accredited printers of BAR. You can select from here. Okay. Mag-select ka lang dito. You need to put those information here, and you need to talk or you need to request your printer to verify also as well here. Okay, bound and loose leaf. So let's say receipts. So it's very important that you have the receipts as well. Then the accredited printers knows about that. And yep, so this is the description that how many loose leaves or booklets that you need to have. And take note of the validity of these receipts or invoices. It's only valid for 5 years. Take note of that. And you need to put, if you are VAT taxpayer, and you need to put X here. If you're non-VAT, the percentage tax, then you need to put here. Because the receipt would be different, the content of the receipt would be different from that of the non-VAT. So the VAT receipt would be different from the non-VAT. Okay. Right, so you need to put your employer as well here. All right, so let's go back. This is the 1906 authority to print, and then if you are getting all of this information, okay, this 1901, you need to have the 1906. So I'm opening the 1906. Right. So your name, again, similar information. This is the same information that you've got and you've written. Basically, same information, but they have a different just I think the purpose of this one is just to have a different documentation from the BR side. And yep. So next thing is the 1905 is the books of accounts. So you have the registration, you have the authority to print, and then you move on to the 1905, the books of accounts. So what are those books of accounts? So these are mainly the journals, the ledgers. Okay. Now, so let's open the 1905. What are those common information required? Okay. So basically 1905 is just an update or cancellation. So here, so don't mind this. Don't mind the first part. Here, okay? So if your civil status will not change pretty much soon, then you don't need this. So not everything in the BAR form, take note of that, not everything in the BAR form should have information. It only depends on what information you need to update. Okay, just click this one, update books of accounts. Okay, you put it here, right? So those are the basic forms that you need to fill out and when registering with the BAR. Then let's proceed. Again, valid IDs, the registration fee 500, and the purchase of, yep. So if you're already commencing your business, then I would suggest that you have to purchase some stubs in the BIR. So these are called, sorry, BIR printed receipt. So let's move on to the next slide. All right, so section 8, we're almost there. Tax compliance calendar. So I've summarized the returns that you will be needing. So again, I've taken a note that business doesn't have any employees. So first, annual registration, 605. The deadline for this is before 31st. Income tax will be filed in 2 quarterly. So here, the frequency is made in quarterly. And what type of form you would be needing is that 1701Q. Okay, and these are the deadlines. Q1 is first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and these are the deadlines. Annually, okay, so we have a different form for mixed income earner and purely business income. So 1701. So actually, BIR forms are available at the BIR website. You just need to find Google BIR, and then you have in the lower part of the portal, in the left side, you just need to click BIR forms. You can find it there. So 1701A for purely business income, and the deadline would be on or before 15th of April. And yep, sorry. Percentage tax, this will be filed quarterly, and the form is 51Q, 2551Q, and it's within 25 days after the end of each taxable quarter. So for example, if the first quarter would end, so first quarter would be January to March, right? So the deadline would be on the April 25th. So VAT, if you are, again, just like I mentioned earlier, you don't need to pay 2 business taxes. If you are registered for percentage tax, then you don't need to file your VAT return. Okay? You don't need to pay VAT on it. So if you're registered with VAT, then you don't have this number 4, and you have this compliant tax return. So monthly would be 2550M, and not later than 20th day following the close of the month. So for example, if close of the month is January 31, then February 20 would be the deadline. Okay. Quarterly 2550Q. So take note, M is for month and Q is for quarter. Okay. Expanded withholding tax. In my example earlier, if you are paying rent, then you need to withhold 5% withholding tax on it, and this will be filed quarterly. Okay, and the form is 1601EQ, and also after you have done so many payments every quarter, then you need to summarize all of those in 1604E, and the deadline would be on or before March 31. And this is on the assumption that you don't have employees in your business. So the minimum books of accounts that you need to keep: journal, ledger, cash receipts books, disbursements books, and if you are a VAT taxpayer, then you need to add additional 2. So subsidiary sales journal and subsidiary purchases journal. And if you don't have if your transactions would be voluminous, then I would suggest that you would need to hire a bookkeeper. However, if your transactions would not that be voluminous, I think you can do this by yourself. You don't need to pay a professional fee for having a bookkeeper. Right. So account information form, BIR form 1710AF. So it is required if your gross sales exceed 3 million. So meaning to say, if you are a VAT taxpayer, right, because you're expected that your gross sales would be more than 3 million, okay, in a given year and for 1 year, then certification of a CPA would be required for this one. Okay, I'll be showing you what contents are there in the BIR form 1701AF. So not required to be certified by a CPA. So if your annual gross sales would not exceed 3 million, then you don't need to have a CPA certification. But if you're choosing 8% flat tax rate, the one that I just presented earlier, then you don't need to file account information form. Okay. Yeah, so this is what I mentioned earlier. The receipts, official receipts for services, and if you're selling goods, it's called sales invoice. So they are only valid for 5 years. And then retention period, books and supporting documents, maximum of 10 years. Hard copy would be within 5 years, and thereafter you can only retain the electronic copy. You don't need to have hard copy in it. Okay. Right. So the penalties. So in the first part I've mentioned what are the penalties if the BR will catch you that you're not registering. So these are the penalties that you will be suffering in case you would not register with BR if get caught. Take note, if get caught, right? So failure to register, the penalty would be ranging from 5 to 20,000, and again the imprisonment for maybe you would be in prison for at least 6 to 24 months, or that would be 2 years, right, maximum. Failure to issue receipts, and first offense would be 10 and then 20 second offense. Refusal to issue receipts or invoices, 25 first offense, 50 second offense. Possession of unregistered receipts or invoices, 20,000 first offense to 50,000 second offense. Failure to keep the records that I've just mentioned, the books of accounts, the journals, the ledgers, the penalty would be ranging from 1,000 to 50,000. Failure to withhold taxes, if you fail to withhold the rent that you paid to your lessor, for example, so have a penalty, BR would penalize you ranging from 1,000 to 25,000. And then you failure to pay or internal revenue taxes, like you are not paying your income tax, your percentage tax or VAT, the penalty would be 1,000, 50,000. Again, RMC, if you can remember, in the third bullet point, the BAR would not penalize those past transactions if paid, if settled, if paid on or before July 31. So you will be avoiding all of this one, right? You will be avoiding all of these penalties on or before July 31. If you are registering your business and you're filing your returns and paying this, all of this before July 31, you will be avoiding all of these penalties. And so what would be the action points? So this is just only a summary or the action points that you should take. So regardless whether or not you have a tax liability, you're required to register your online business with BAR. Second, change your mindset that you will only register once you earn. So basically, this is our mindset, right? So magre-register lang ako kapag kumita na yung business. Don't wait. Change this mindset, because if BAR would issue you a notice, that would be too late na. So otherwise, so again, these are the penalties. Submit your registration with BAR on or before July 31st to avail of the benefit of late registration penalties. Evaluate and strategize your tax position. The tax position that I just mentioned in the, they call this the chart. Okay. Declare past transactions, no penalties. Okay. If settled before July 31st, issue receipts. So what is the requirement provided under the regulations? So BAR required that receipts for services or invoices for goods, you should issue 100 pesos. If your transaction is 100 pesos or more, then you should issue a receipt, right? Maintain and keep books of accounts. This is the one that we just mentioned earlier in the earlier slides, the maximum of 10 years. So any questions?
All right. Actually, we do have a good number of questions that have been raised during the presentation. But before we proceed to these questions, I believe that our participants answered a poll. And the question goes, for you, what skills and knowledge are needed to make businesses who are just starting grow and succeed. So for those who have not yet answered the poll, you can do so later. But as for now, I can just give you a rundown of the initial results. No, most of them, I believe most of our participants have a good experience in business as well, because their answers really reflect that. They a lot of them mention, for example, um, uh, business strategies such as managing customer relations, knowing your market, I suppose marketing strategies, creating contingency plans. And then there are also others who mentioned possessing the entrepreneurial mindset and making sure that you're complying with the law and regulation. So I guess that's very much aligned with our topic today. So thank you so much, Daryl. I believe that your presentation has been very informational and enlightening to all of us. I guess the main takeaway that we can really keep in mind from this presentation is that these are government efforts to help online businesses join the formal sector. It's basically a measure to help legalize online businesses, and there are definitely benefits to that. So, having said this, we will now proceed to the questions that which you can actually see. If you want to see a list of the questions, just head on to the links that we provided in the chat box at the side. All right. So the first question here says, can business tax be considered a cost that can be passed on to customers?
For can business tax can be considered a cost that can be passed
Cost.
on. So if
Right.
you are a taxpayer, okay, if you are a VAT taxpayer, then we have a concept here as input tax and output VAT. So output VAT, so if you are selling 100 pesos, if you're selling your face mask, for example, at 100, then you can add 12 pesos on top of that, because 12% times 100, then the customer will be paying you 112 instead of 100. Then that 12 pesos, you need to remit that to the BAR, because it's not your income. It's the tax that the consumer paid to you. You will just be a withholding agent. Safa, you're in mute.
Right. So just to clarify, Daryl, no, this is an additional point that may be raised by other online sellers. And I believe that the essence was lost in the many conversations that took place on social media. So again, just to confirm, you are saying that all online businesses are required to register with the BIR. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. And they are also all required to issue receipts.
Yes, if the transaction is 100 pesos or more. If the transaction is
Right.
only 99 pesos, then it's not required. Unlike
Right.
before, for the train, it's 25 pesos.
Mm,
So now
yes.
increase it to 100 pesos.
Right. So that should be something of a convenience to the online seller. All right. We have here another question. It says, would you advise individuals to register with the BIR even if they are just trying out to be in business at this time? So I believe this is also applicable to those who are still beginning their startups.
Yes. So if you notice in my slides, so this is the mindset that I'm just telling. The mindset would be, let's just wait until we have a profit. If get caught by the BAR, you cannot argue with the BAR saying that I don't have a profit, I'm just starting a business. And BAR would say, based on experience, the BAR would not listen to you. They'll just impose you, and then you can defend that in the court. But if you go to the court, then you will be experiencing a lot of costs, professional fees, where in fact you know that the law is very specific. So on or before business commencement means that you're already starting your business, you're selling goods. Yeah, I understand that this RMC is very ill-timed amidst the COVID pandemic. However, this is what the tax law unfortunately say.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's true. And in connection to that question as well, Uh, I think someone here also would like to know if the BIR checks after online businesses to see if they are registered or not. You may have an idea on what government measures are in place in order to ensure compliance on the part of the online sellers.
Right. So that's a very good question, actually. Um, there is no, at the moment, as I understand it, there is no, at the moment, facility from there to identify who are those online sellers who are not registered with the BAR. So even the BAR themselves accept that fact.
Mm-hmm.
In that 13, even Kim Hinares issued that, just a reminder. So meaning that it's voluntarily. Now, when you're hearing the news, so they emphasizes that they are after of the big online sellers like the Lazada or Shopee. Um,
Right.
so let's not wait. And yep, I agree that um, there is no such facility as yet to identify. But let's not wait that we would be able that the bear would be able to identify us.
Yes. Yes. And also, I believe this is my own. Um, these are just my own thoughts, no, which have also been, um, I believe some of my friends who are in the online selling community have also raised the same concern. And some of them are not regular sellers in the sense that they only operate when they have stocks to sell. So in that case, would they still be classified as online sellers, Daryl?
E- so that's a interesting question. So we have we call this marginal income earner.
Mm-hmm.
So marginal income earner, meaning to say you don't have to pay um, business tax on it as long as your annual sales does not exceed 100,000 in a given year. So meaning to say
Right.
if if they're just doing it whenever there are inventories, and then they would calculate it at the end of the year that it would not meet, or they would not exceed 100,000, then
Mm.
um, you don't need to pay business tax. And again, they also do not need to pay income tax because at the moment it's 250,000 income tax. However, on your question of the registration, again, this is not something that the BR exempt. So BR
Mm.
actually is look um, for all transaction, even if you don't have any tax liabilities. They just want everyone to participate because the main purpose of the BAR is to identify those small time business to enter into the formal sector. Because in the
Right.
formal sector, um, this government is providing some benefits. Like for example, those formal business will have a lower interest when accessing loans.
Mm-hmm.
Those small business with employees would be covered under this minimum wage earner. So even if it's below minimum wage earner, then they are not violating the law, right? Because the
Right.
government understands. So these are
Mm-hmm.
the benefits that would the business would benefit from if you are entering the formal business now.
Right. So, what would you say about also those who sell occasionally, for example, on the marketplace on Facebook, or those who are part of groups that barter items? Would that still be classified as online selling? Or, for example, those who sell used items,
Against news items,
used items.
use items. So yeah, I've seen, so because Mindanaoans are very creative, unlike the Luzon parts of the Filipinos in Luzon, so they don't have a barter. So in Mindanao, we have this barter community. So if reading by the law, barter is there, exchange
Uh-huh.
or yeah. So it's sort of a transaction. The question now be is how much, what's the value of that? So
Right.
that's
Exactly.
very challenging. So again, it's an honest and an honest and voluntarily um, telling the bear this is the value, and then it's up to the bear to challenge if the value is less or more.
Yes. So you're saying that even if for those who are not regularly selling, but as long as you're selling online, and if that transaction exceeds 100, then you are still mandated by law to issue a receipt, even though you may not be you may not be complied to pay a tax at the end of the year. Am I right?
Yeah, correct. If your transaction is 100 pesos or more, is the value of the transaction.
Okay. We have here another question from Slido, and it says, when should you register with the BIR? I'm not sure
When
if, I'm not sure if the person who asked this question is asking for a specific time frame, or probably like the right time within the business cycle.
Yeah. So when should you register with BIR? So it should be on or before the commencement of your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's avail the benefit. There will be no late registration fees. There will be no fa- uh, late settlement fees from the BIR. The penalties for this one, if you register on or before 31. Without
Mm-hmm.
this, you will be incurring penalties, of course, once the BIR again caught. That's just the word caught. So
Right. Yeah.
you will take the risk, you will take the risk of that one, the risk of penalty if
Yeah.
get caught.
There's also another question here that's in connection to that. That it says, is there a best time to register with BIR to maximize net income after tax? And then open close parenthesis, when you are just starting.
Yeah, again, so if you go to the status chart, um, let's evaluate. The online seller should evaluate whether you can avail of the 8%, because 8% you will be avoiding filing percentage tax and paying percentage tax, right? And you will be only filing annual income tax. The online seller should evaluate also if their gross sales would be 3 million or less. So that's the best that they should do, because at the moment, I believe 8% would be beneficial for online sellers, not only for the admin cost that it would be avoided, like you don't need to pay professional fees for that, because you're only filing quarterly income tax. Because I think the most common issues from the sellers is the cost of the administrative cost for this one.
Okay. And we also have here a question that says, do you really have to fill out the books of accounts? It's easier to use spreadsheets.
Yes, because if yeah, you can use your spreadsheets, but it should be printed, and then you'll be putting it in a loose leaf. You bound it, then the bearer should have stamped it, because the bearer, without having it registered, the bearer would again unregistered books. So the bearer would not accept that, and the possible penalty, the bearer would reject your books. That means to say, whatever you have recorded in your spreadsheets, they would not mind, because it's not registered. Okay, I will arbitrarily issue you an assessment. This is what you're going to pay. Then you cannot argue with the buyer. No, this is what is our transaction. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
risk of that.
Right. Okay. And also, another question here that says, it seems we have to do tax transactions almost every month. Given that we need to maintain the business, is it possible to do all these tax payments once a year?
Yes. So again, we need to distinguish income tax and the business tax. Again, you go back to the status chart. There is no tax there that can be filed once a year, right? There can be only, so the minimum would be the monthly and then quarterly. So if you're opting for the 8%, okay, 8%, you only need to file one tax type, and that would be income tax. So you will only be filing quarterly, so that's 4 times, and then sorry, it would be 3 times quarterly. So first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter, and your annual income tax return. So if you're opting for the 8%, so you
Mm-hmm.
only have to file 4 returns in a year. Okay, if you're 8%, but if you're not 8%, then then and your gross sales would not exceed 3 million, then you are required to settle or file percentage tax. So that's a different type of tax as mentioned earlier. And so that means to say the income tax four times, the four returns, and then also the four returns for the percentage tax, that would be eight in total.
Mm-hmm. Right. And for our last question, because you mentioned in your presentation that also those who are partaking in the promotional aspect of products, but are also probably earning a commission off of each sale. So, and you also mentioned that YouTubers then would have to be part. They're under the jurisdiction of this circular. So now, would you say that YouTubers would have to consider themselves as business entities and have to register themselves then?
Actually, that's a tricky question on the YouTubers because we should distinguish who are those YouTubers. YouTubers who are selling or in their platform, or who are what they call say parang tawag dito, yung nagpe-present sila ng isang certain brand, like
Right.
nag-ad
Yes.
certain brand. And of course, for that YouTuber, they are selling, they are making transactions or advertisements. But for those YouTuber, like for example, if you're just posting your life, sharing your
Mm,
life across the, and it's not your fault that you have so many followers, right?
right.
Fault that you're so many followers, and it's not your fault that everyone follows your life. And that's
Right.
a tricky question, whether it should be taxable income, it should be considered as your earning income because YouTube will pay you on that one, but
Yes.
you are not selling or you're not advertising a specific product. Actually, that's a
Mm,
tricky question. But in my opinion, because we don't have a precedent case at that moment for the YouTubers,
right.
and I think it will go along the way, in the court. Because in my opinion, personal opinion, if I'm a YouTuber and then just sharing my travel, my life without even advertising a specific product,
Anything.
then
Right.
I don't need to register. I don't need to
Uh-huh.
register. Again, BR would always come, would always think of ways that they will cover every person's. The argument that BR would would need is they would be classified as other income, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, other income in the sense that if you're an employee and then you receive salary income and you're also earning income, or you receive amount received from YouTube for sharing your personal life
Right.
across the world, then yeah. But again, in my personal opinion, you don't need to. Let's
Right.
wait.
Right. Let's wait for a case, for a landmark
Right.
case to set the right to
Let's
set
wait
the
for those. Yeah, let's wait for YouTubers like Gonzaga, those 1 million. Let's
right.
wait
Yeah.
if they will, if BR will issue a notice requiring them to register, and then
Because much is
that's
also earned from being on YouTube. And as I opened this webinar in my opening statement, I mentioned that the pandemic has brought on a surge of online sellers, and I believe also alongside with that, there's also been a surge of new YouTubers who realize that, okay, well, instead of us just wasting time, use the downtime to probably now finally open our own channels and share updates. And I know some who were able to really hit the numbers, like gain as fast as 2,000 subscribers in just a week. So, and I was informed that there is a lot of money to be earned from YouTube. That's why I was wondering if they'd also be taxed, just like the online sellers. So, thank
yeah.
you so much, Daryl, for this very informational and valuable talk. I'm sure all of our participants have learned a lot from the points that you have discussed, and also for those who will be watching this presentation later on. So thank you also to all our participants, and we would like to just remind you that we will be posting the recorded video of this webinar on our Facebook page of MSU-IIT CBA Graduate Studies. That's the name of the page. So kindly head on there and like the page if you would like to rewatch this webinar at a later time. So, and if you have also other questions or probably any inquiries about the CBAA Graduate Studies Program, you may also send in your queries through the Facebook page. Or, yeah, I believe you can also message our administrator, Dr. Pamela Resurrection. We may provide you with her email should you have any inquiries, especially that we're accepting students for the incoming school year. So that's it, everyone. Thank you so much, Mr. Daryll Don and thank you to all our participants. This is it. This is the end of our webinar, and I wish you the best of health, and I hope you stay safe. Thank you, and bye.
Thank you. Bye.